Hey, by downloading our Buff app, you're helping to support videos just like this. Thanks. You guessed it, partner. That's me. My name's Brandon, and for a spell now, I've been living life straight out of the 1800s. Out here, the days are long, the nights are cold, and the work never really ends. It's a hard life, full of grit, hunger, and the kind of work that tests a man's spirit. You might be wondering how I ended up in this world. Well, that's a story of struggle, discovery, and maybe a little redemption. And like any story, it's best to start the tale at the very beginning. The 1800s. Now, I think it's safe to say we've all been a little curious what it would be like to live in a time period from the past, and that's exactly why I created this series. I've lived like a man from the 1950s, the 1980s, and the 1990s. But for this one, I wanted to take it back to a time of cowboys, outlaws, in the Wild West. A part of American history so iconic it still captures imaginations around the world. From movies and video games to Halloween costumes and lunchboxes. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, you know what a cowboy is. Looking back at it now, it's easy to see why the Wild West has turned into something mythical, like dragons or aliens. But this fantasy, it was all real. Now, I was introduced to the Wild West like most people, through movies and video games. Figures like John Wayne and Clint Eastwood influenced an entire generation, and video games like the Oregon Trail and Red Dead Redemption continue to. And in turn, the Wild West has been solidified as one of the most popular times in history. And like much of history, a lot happened in the 1800s, specifically how Americans worked their way west. In 1803, the U.S. doubled in size with the Louisiana Purchase, opening the gates to the American West. Soon after, Lewis and Clark were sent to explore the new frontier, charting rivers, mountains, and tribes never seen by Americans. But expansion came at a cost. The Indian Removal Act forced native tribes off their land in one of America's darkest chapters. In 1848, the war with Mexico ended, with the U.S. claiming even more territory, stretching from sea to shining sea. Then came gold. In 1849, thousands raced west to strike it rich, forever changing California and the frontier. In 1862, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Homestead Act, offering 160 acres of land to anyone willing to farm it for 5 years. It kicked off one of the largest waves of settlement in American history. And as families made their way west, they followed a now famous route, the Oregon Trail. In 1869, the East and West were finally connected by rail. Suddenly, the frontier wasn't so far away. By the 1880s, the West was booming with homesteaders. This was the peak of the pioneer era. Sod houses, windmills, barbed wire, and backbreaking labor was used to tame the land. That brings us to where I come in. See, growing up, everyone wanted to be a cowboy, but the real people who built the West were the settlers. So that is exactly what I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna be living my life like a settler coming to the West. No electricity, no running water, and no modern technology. So the real question is, can a modern man survive the 1800s? Now, before I dive headfirst into the deep waters of the Wild West, I have my work cut out for me. I need clothes, tools, and a location, because the goal is to go out in the middle of nowhere and build a cabin from scratch and live in it. So I have a plan. Step 1, research. I'm not exactly an expert on the 1800s, so I've got some serious research to do, a lot of reading and studying to get a real sense of how people lived back then. Step 2, location. I need a piece of land way out in the middle of nowhere, somewhere rugged, untamed, and full of trees I can cut down for lumber. Step 3, clothes and tools. To live like a true frontiersman, I've got to dress the part and get my hands on the same kind of tools they would have used to build and survive. And for that, I'll be using modern technology, but back then they had something just as powerful, their own kind of online store long before the internet ever existed. The Sears, Roebuck and Company catalog. It was the Amazon of the 1800s, a lifeline for families scattered across the American frontier. By 1897, it had grown to over 600 pages, packed with just about everything you could imagine. Clothes, tools, furniture, guns, watches, even wagons. For many people living miles from the nearest town, it was more than a catalog. It was a window into a world of possibilities. You could order almost anything by mail, and they would arrive right at your doorstep, delivered by train or wagon. And it was also used as a convenient source of toilet paper. Now, there's only so much I can learn from books, so I went to a local ranch to tag along with some modern-day cowboys. Yeah, some people might think that all the cowboys died out in the 1800s, but I was witnessing firsthand that they are very much still alive. Today, they were wrangling some cattle, and it was a sight to see. With precise teamwork and expert handling, they quickly got the cattle grouped up and pushed them right into the corral.
I gotta be honest, when I see all the cows spread across the land here, you got a handful of cowboys and cowgirls, I was thinking, man, this is gonna be rough. We're gonna be out here all day, but man, they were efficient. It's already done. That was pretty quick. That is impressive. Of course, I got me in my modern day vehicle, but at least I got to witness it.
As I stood there watching people and animals move in sync, it hit me that this scene hasn't really changed in over a century. I was watching the present, but it very much felt like I was looking straight into the past. Alright, so I just made it back from the ranch, and that was a cool experience. Now, initially, I wanted to try to get a horse for this video, but you know, they're not that easy to get a hold of. I mean, it's not like a vehicle. You can't just go out and buy one. I mean, I guess you can, but you need a place to keep them, you need to feed them and care for them, so that's not gonna happen. And I guess I could have borrowed one, but you know, I don't think anyone would be too keen on me borrowing one of their horses, because truth be told, I've never even ridden a horse before. So I'm gonna be going solo on this one, and I still have a few things to get ready because the goal is to leave first thing tomorrow morning, so I gotta start packing up. And I'll be taking a very minimal amount of gear. Originally, I wanted to cook over an open fire, but I don't have a way to store the food, and it's currently the peak wildfire season. So instead, I'll be taking some pickled eggs and jerky. It might not be much, but they didn't have much back then. And now that I pretty much have everything I need, it was around this time I got a call from my dad. He heard about the project I was working on and explained to me that this subject hit a lot closer to home than I originally thought. So I made a quick trip to see what he had to show me. Meet my dad, Duke. He's the reason I got into Westerns in the first place. Alright, Dad, so you got something to show me?
Yeah, it's the United States of America land deed. It was given in 1850 because it made donations to settlers who came out west, and they gave them 160 acres, or what they called 1/4. And it's signed by the president at the time, Ulysses S. Grant. Wow.
That's right. I just found out my relatives were settlers that came to Oregon back in 1876. I suddenly realized this project had become something else entirely. It was no longer just a test of survival, but a chance to feel what it's really like to step into the unknown and build something from nothing, defying the odds to carve out a new life. This was going to be a true journey into just how resilient the human spirit can be. As I grabbed my gear, I couldn't help but have some reservations about what I was getting myself into. I'd be all alone, out in the middle of nowhere with little to no real experience. But maybe that's how most pioneers felt. As I hiked deeper into the wild, my spirits lifted when I found the perfect location. A wide open area, beautiful scenery, lots of trees, and most importantly, no sounds of cars, no power lines, not a trace of modern life in sight. So now that I claimed my spot, I quickly laid out my tools, knowing I had to get right to work because I only have 1 week to build an entire cabin by myself. And with it being the hottest part of the year, with the temperatures reaching over 100 degrees, the sooner I get the shelter built, the better. The log cabin was essential as the pioneers' first step toward carving out a life in the wild frontier. In the 1800s, when settlers moved west to claim land and build a future, the log cabin was often their only protection from the elements and their refuge after long days of hard work. But beyond its basic function as a home, the log cabin was an emblem of survival and ingenuity. One of the great benefits of a log cabin is there was no need for nails. Early settlers used notches in the logs, called dovetails or saddle notches, to interlock them securely. And because wood was the primary building material, settlers often relied on whatever type of trees were available: pine, oak, or in my case, being in Central Oregon, juniper. In many ways, the log cabin represented the pioneer spirit itself: practical, self-sufficient, and determined. It was a small but vital part of a larger story, one of resilience and perseverance that helped shape the American frontier.
So I'm setting a little workstation up here, digging some posts in. I'm going to notch it out, set kind of like a cross member up so I can just lean some of the logs against it and I can work on the logs that way a lot easier. But there's still a lot of work to be done. I've been working for probably, 3 hours now, and I have barely got anything done. So I got a long road ahead of me. This is where a horse or a mule would come in handy. And that's one of the main reasons why they had him. Transportation, but also helping him out with his manual labor.
The horse. Now, you couldn't talk about the 1800s without talking about horses, an iconic symbol of the American West. Horses plowed fields, herded cattle, carried mail, and sometimes helped haul wagons across thousands of miles of rough terrain. Entire cultures like the Plains tribes became masters of horseback life, transforming their way of living after horses were introduced by the Spanish around the 1500s. They weren't possessions, but companions, a living, breathing machine that helped carry dreams across an entire continent. And to be honest with you, I wish I had a horse right about now to help share some of this workload, and for a little companionship too.
It is hard to understate how much work this takes. These juniper are just a big bush, just full of limbs. So limbing it, chopping it down, then dragging it into position there is just taking probably around 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the size of the tree. And it is just killing me. Huge respect to those settlers in those days. There's another tree down. And another 5 pounds lost probably. Oh God. Never gets easier.
Day one, and I was already learning just how unforgiving this life could be. Back home, this life might seem appealing. A man out in the wild building something from nothing. It's easy to believe that from the safety of a couch watching it play out in a movie. But out here, it's just the sound of my own heavy breathing, steel hitting wood, and the fear of the unpredictable.
Looks like there's a storm coming up. Well, the storm's been going on for quite a while now. As you can tell, it's gotten pretty dark, and I'm just taking cover under a tree just to keep dry, and I really don't have anywhere else to go. So I think at this point I just gotta weather out the storm and hope it passes by soon. Man, I was not prepared for this. Whew. God, it is coming down.
Needless to say, I barely got any sleep last night, and to be honest, it was really hard to find the motivation to get up and start moving. But this cabin isn't going to build itself, and I got nothing else to do out here, so I got back to work.
Oh, God. I cannot believe how much work this really is. Such a small tree, but God, that took so much work. And in this heat, I felt like I was gonna pass out. But it's done. I'm gonna limb it and drag it over.
As the sun set on day 2, I sat there soaking in the view. Just yesterday, I was cursing the weather and fighting off feelings of defeat, but now I couldn't feel more at peace. I guess that's the lesson out here. You have to face the bad moments to really appreciate the good ones. Enjoying my hard-earned boiled eggs and jerky, I hunkered down for a much-needed night's rest. This is definitely some hard living. My entire body is sore, and this is the high desert, so it might have been in the hundreds yesterday, but last night it got pretty damn cold, so I didn't get the best night of sleep, and of course sleeping on this hard ground doesn't help any. But the sun's up, and I gotta start another day's work because I gotta try to get this cabin done as fast as I can. Whew.
It was another day, and I had a long list of things to get done. And although it was the morning, the sun was already out in full effect, and the heat was already getting to me. And I was running low on water. Life on the frontier wasn't just hard, there was a high likelihood that it could be deadly. Out here, there were 100 ways to meet your end before you ever finish your morning coffee. You could be crushed by a wagon, thrown from your horse, bitten by a rattlesnake, freeze solid in a blizzard, suffer from heat stroke, or maybe just get a little dehydration. Disease was everywhere. Cholera, smallpox, scurvy, typhoid, and of course the most infamous of all, dysentery. Anyone ever played the Oregon Trail knows how that one ends. And if nature didn't get you, accidents probably would. A simple cut could turn septic. An axe swing gone wrong could mean death by gangrene, loss of blood, or best case scenario, lose a leg. Out here, there were no hospitals, no paramedics, and no second chances. Survival wasn't about being brave, it was most likely about being lucky.
It is hot as hell right now, and I am just dying in this heat, and the faster I can get out of this heat, the better. Whew. A little bit of a breeze, but it ain't helping much. I'm just thankful for this hat and this handkerchief because it's helping the sun get out of my face, but regardless, I'm gonna try to get this done as fast as I can, but God, I got just so much work to do. The sun is getting lower in the sky. I grabbed some rocks, cut a few more trees down, but I didn't get anywhere close to what I wanted to get done today. It just feels like every day is going almost like a waste because I just feel like I take one step forward and 2 steps back. I'm starting to cut the trees, but I'm going farther and farther away from this site just to get the right ones, and I have to drag them over here, which takes so much effort and so much time as well, so I don't really have that many logs. But I'm gonna start placing the logs down just to at least get an idea of where I want this cabin, but I'm gonna have to rethink my strategy because this really isn't working. Oh yeah, my workbench fell down. I just kind of added to it all, which didn't really surprise me. It wasn't really that well built anyways. Hopefully that doesn't happen to the cabin when I'm done with it. The sun is just now going down over that hill and I am beat. So I think I'm about to call this a day. Get some food, set up camp, my little canvas bag there so I can get some needed rest. So I've been sitting here contemplating what my next move is and how I'm gonna get this done in time, and I just don't think I'm gonna be able to do it. The amount of logs I need to finish this cabin is just not doable in the time frame that I have. It's gonna take months to get this done, and that is just too long. So I think I've decided to pack up and head to the nearest town. I'm gonna send a telegram to some family members, my brother, my dad, see if they can head my way and help out to build this cabin, because God, I'm gonna need all the help I can get.
So the next morning, I packed up my gear and walked to the nearest town and was reminded again how important owning a horse would be. But as I got closer to town, I felt a sense of excitement, which was probably a similar feeling most pioneers had, even if the towns weren't much. A few dusty streets lined with wooden buildings, a general store, a blacksmith, maybe a saloon or a hotel. But in the 1800s, small towns were the lifeblood of the frontier, and if the town was big enough, they might have the option to send a telegram. which is why I'm here. Before phones and instant messages, the telegram was the lifeline of the 1800s. It all started in the 1830s when Samuel Morse and Alfred Vail developed a system that could send electrical signals through wire, turning dots and dashes into words. And from that moment on, communication would never be the same. For the first time, news could travel hundreds of miles in minutes instead of weeks. It connected cities, businesses, and families across the growing nation, and became the heartbeat of the American frontier. But it wasn't cheap. Every word cost money, so messages were kept short and direct, just enough to get the point across. Births, deaths, business deals, or in my case, a plea from a man in the wilderness asking for help. Out on the frontier, family was everything. They were a support system, a source of knowledge, and a reminder that no one truly makes it alone. When I sent out that telegram, I wasn't sure anyone would answer, but sure enough, they did. And it looks like they not only brought the muscle and know-how, but also some tools. With the help of my dad and brother, this cabin would be built in no time. We were working like a well-oiled machine, trading off limbing, cutting, sawing, and hauling rocks to the same singular goal. But it wasn't just the extra help. It was a boost in morale, a new sense of energy, motivation, and purpose. I was now realizing this was the real frontier life, teamwork and camaraderie. We were in this together, and because I had them, I knew I would survive. But just as we were starting to feel confident, little did we know, disaster was about to strike.
The Cram Fire, now Oregon's largest wildfire.
The Cram Fire. The Cram Fire.
The wildfire forced a mass evacuation.
The largest active wildfire in the United States.
And was nearing mega fire status.
Officials say it's now the largest wildfire burning in the state,
Which exploded overnight.
sparking evacuation orders, including the Ashwood community.
It has destroyed a total of 6 buildings, 4 of those being homes.
Now, there is always a high likelihood that there's wildfires in the summer, but it didn't really cross my mind that we'd be directly in the path of one. So we were evacuated from the area alongside the residents, their families, and animals. And we were pleased to hear everyone made it out safe. Arriving home was a strange experience. Although I've only been out in the wilderness for a handful of days, stepping inside my house almost seemed foreign. But I can't tell you how incredible something as simple as taking a shower felt. As the dirt and grime washed away, it felt as if the frontier life was going down the drain with it. I was back to modern life. Plentiful food, power, running water, and technology, which is what I was glued to as I continued to track the path of the Cram Fire.
So this puts a major stop to this project. I mean, the whole video was revolving around building this cabin and living in it, and at this point, that's just not gonna happen. I mean, the good news is the wildland firefighters are getting the fire under control, and I just wanna say thank you to them for risking their lives to save others. And I do have to say, I try to make these videos as authentic as I can, putting in the actual work and trying to get that feel of what it might be like, but I do realize that there's a line of actually living in the 1800s and producing an entertaining video on my experience with it. So we did have a cell phone on standby just in case for emergencies, and I am very happy we did because case in point, we wouldn't have known there was a fire and also the evacuation, so that was very helpful. But at this point, I'm pretty much on standby. I have no idea how much damage has been done. Obviously, this was a massive fire. So I just have to wait and see when I can get back out there and to see if anything's actually salvageable or not.
So it's been a while after the Cram Fire, but as you can tell, it was pretty devastating, and this is really what is left of this countryside. Trees are burned up, the ground is full of ash, and I gotta be honest, looking around, I don't really see much more of a reason to be out here. There's nothing to really do, and there's nothing to use now. All the logs we spent so much time cutting down and preparing to build the log cabin are gone. They're burnt up. Oh man, and this is kind of sad to see, honestly. It's such a beautiful countryside, and this is what it looks like now. The good news is nature does return. It's gonna be beautiful again, but in the meantime, I need to find out what I'm gonna do next, because this part of the journey is clearly over.
No matter the time in history, life has always been shaped by hope, hardship, and uncertainty. And in the 1800s, that hope had a direction: west. A new territory opened up, sold as a chance at a better life. Stories passed from one person to the next, and newspaper articles painted the West as a land of endless opportunity and untouched beauty. It's no surprise so many people came chasing that dream. But it was a journey never meant for the faint of heart. My own attempt at living like a settler didn't quite work out the way I imagined, and that might have been the truth for many of them as well. It wasn't always a storybook tale. The cabin and the land are gone now, lost to the fire. A reminder of how fragile life could be out here.
But the spirit of a settler was not about a happy ending. It was about not quitting. It was about moving forward, working through the hardship, and refusing to let the dream die no matter how heavy the cost.
And as I stand here in the shadow of these mountains, I realize life isn't about what I've left behind, but about the journey that still lies ahead. My story is not over. It's barely begun. Losing the cabin and the land just means I have to search for a new frontier, a new way to step deeper into this world. These mountains whisper a different kind of life, and that's where I'm headed next. But that story is for another time.
So that was my experience in trying to live as an 1800s man, and that ended up being quite the journey. So I just want to take this time to give a little bit of a behind the scenes look at what goes into making something like this, because this whole project took over 6 months to make, and that's partly due to it being done by a one-man crew. I handle the writing, the camera, the lighting, and the editing, as well as being in front of the camera. Now, this is the 4th video in this series, the first one being the I Tried to Live as a 1950s Man, and each one became a little bit bigger. The 1980s one and the 1990s one, and now this one becoming the most ambitious one. The plan was to build an entire cabin, and all the work you see in this is real. I probably only included a fraction of the amount of shots in the edit because, well, let's be honest, who wants to watch someone cut trees down for hours on end? Because as it turns out, I vastly underestimated the amount of logs needed to build a cabin. So I did have my brother and dad help out, which they put a ton of work into, which it doesn't really show in the video because, well, I just didn't want the redundancy of shot after shot of dudes working out in the heat. After we finished the build, the rest of the video was going to be me living in the cabin, but we had some pretty major setbacks. Number one was the wildfire that you saw in the video, and the second one was I actually sustained a pretty serious back injury, which I ended up going in to get an MRI and found out I had multiple bulging discs. So even if we wanted to build a different cabin after the fire, that wasn't going to be a good idea. So I had all this footage of the build and no cabin. So at this point, it was pretty much back to the drawing board. I rewrote the script and took the footage I had and started to edit it together to try to get a cohesive story. There's a balance I try to create in these videos, one being the documentary style of following someone trying to live in a certain time period, and the more entertaining and cinematic style of the story and look. And in order to capture that, I have all of this. The FX3 is my main camera, with the A7S III being my camera B, and I shot it all in anamorphic using the Blazar 35 and 50mm lenses to give it a little bit more of that old western feel. I also have a slider and a Ronin for those tracking and gimbal shots, and a bunch of tripods, C-stands, and lighting to get that 3-point lighting, key light, fill light, and hair light. And for sound, I use the Sennheiser MKE 600. Once I have all my footage, I'll bring it into Premiere to start my edit, adding voiceover, graphics, sound effects, and music. And since I shoot my footage flat, I'll usually bring it into DaVinci Resolve for some color grading, but for this one I just kept it all in Premiere. And there ended up up being this funny dichotomy of trying to live as an 1800s man for a short amount of time, but most of my time was here, surrounded by all of this, spending over 100 hours editing this video. And I get it. You know, some people are just gonna say, there was none of this in the 1800s, shooting with this camera. I completely understand, and you know, this is done for entertaining purposes. There you go, a small look into what I do to make videos like this. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you'd like to show us some support, please check out the Buff app. You can find it on Google Play or the Apple App Store. Your support really does help us to continue to make videos like this. So thank you, and until next time, stay buff, Pilgrim.